Hello everyone and welcome to a new session of Sociology series. Today we're discussing about poverty and deprivation. So this comes in the chapter 5 stratification and mobility. So we'll see what is poverty and we'll see some factors regarding the same, and we'll also see comparing poverty and deprivation. So first we'll try to understand what is poverty. Poverty is a favorite topic of UPSC. You can see questions in mains many times. Repeated questions have come with regards to poverty. So in sociology paper 1 and paper 2 also we can expect questions with related to poverty. So it's better that we have an answer ready with statistics and thinkers with respect to poverty. So when you're writing answers in sociology, you are required to see in a social point of view and write answers as a sociologist, and GS the things are different. Okay, let's get into the topic. So what is poverty? Poverty is a social problem which is often expressed in terms of lack of material resources which one requires for a minimum standard of living. Okay, for a person to live with minimum standard, okay, there are certain things required. If a person don't have these material resources which one requires for a minimum standard of living, we call the situation as a poverty, as is poverty, and poverty is a social problem. Okay, so we are saying that poverty is situation where there is lack of material resources and which one requires for a minimum standard of living. Now the next question is, what is this minimum standard? What do you mean by this minimum standard? So this is actually not clearly defined anywhere. Okay, different country, different region, different area, state, the standards are different. So we can't generalize what are the minimum standards of living. So no agreement upon this, and this definition of poverty have no consensus. We have not come into an agreement in India or globally about what are these minimum standards. Okay. Next, we'll see poverty is invariably defined in terms of material well-being. This is a critique. Okay, we can add this as a critique, that always poverty is seen invariably in terms of what? Material well-being. Okay, and if people have this list material, we say that the people are above poverty line, but we are not saying about their development statistics or their personal happiness. Nothing comes in control of that. Okay, nothing is taking those variables. So that is a critique of that. It only limited to material well-being. Hence, poverty is defined as form of multiple deprivations. Because of all these things, we can say that it is in the form of multiple deprivations poverty is related to. So poverty is a multi-dimensional phenomena and caused because of a variety of factors, and hence its manifestation is also different from context to context, different place to place, context to context, situations to situations, area to area. All these things, the level of poverty or the definition of poverty can be changed. There is no agreement or consensus have reached on what is the minimum standards also. Even though there is no consensus with respect to definition of poverty, but the differentiation of poverty or the division of poverty or types of poverty are always clear across the globe. That is, poverty is divided into absolute poverty and relative poverty. Okay, what do you mean by absolute poverty? Absolute poverty is measured in terms of a benchmark, okay, like per capita income or through concepts like poverty line. So if the group of people is above this benchmark, they are above the poverty line. Below the benchmark, we can say they are in absolute poverty. For example, global parameter of poverty line can be $1.25 per day. Okay, actually all these things addresses only subsistence needs, and I told you there is no upper hand is decided. There is no multi-sectoral definition is not given, only limited to a subsistence need. If you have this parameters, then you are out of poverty, or if you don't have this benchmark parameters, you are in poverty criteria. Okay, that is taken. This is about the absolute poverty, that will take a benchmark, and below this, above this, concepts are taken care. That is about the absolute poverty. Then we'll see about relative poverty. Relative poverty argues that poverty is culturally defined and measured in terms of relative deprivation. We'll see the relative deprivation. For example, there are two people uh, in a lift. Okay, in a building, in a lift, two people are standing, and one person is taking out his Apple iPhone, and another person is having a normal Samsung phone. So finally, the person having the Samsung phone will feel deprived. Comparing, that means relatively he's thinking, okay, I don't have this Apple iPhone. That is a deprivation. That is not poverty actually. It's a deprived feeling, comparing others. Okay, comparative analysis we are doing here. So that is about the relative poverty. Another example we can talk about is that in US, cars in US, if a family don't have a car, if a person don't have a car, it is considered as poor. Not in case of India. In India, if you have a car, you consider as rich, right? So in US, the scenario is different. So there is no generalized consensus, and relative poverty is also different in different countries. So you just understand the concept. Poverty is a social phenomena or a social problem. It is actually expressed as lack of material resources which one requires for a minimum standard of living. It is divided into two, absolute poverty and relative poverty. Absolute poverty is measured keeping a benchmark. Relative poverty means relative deprivation we are seeing in substances. Now we'll try to understand certain thinkers' point of view. For example, Peter Townsend. Peter Townsend have defined poverty in terms of relative deprivation. I told you what is relative deprivation. You can talk about the US car and Apple phone. These are the examples. Please note it down. So Peter Townsend defined poverty in terms of relative deprivation, and other measures like calorie approach has also been adopted in India. We know that. Okay, for measuring poverty, we have taken calorie approach also. That's about other thinker is F.M. Eden and Sir John Sinclair. They have said that relative condition of absence of some desirable component in society, then there is a poverty. What is that? That is also with respect to relative. Absence of some desirable components in society, then the group is poverty driven. Okay, and mostly everybody talks about poverty in terms of economic sense. We can add this point also. Then we have discussed sometime before in the previous slide, poverty is a multi-dimensional aspect. Okay, multi-dimensional deprivation also, multi-dimensional aspect also. What are this multi-dimensional? We can divide with respect to education, with respect to healthcare, social capital, information, political power, etc. Okay, that means if you don't have education, you don't have right information. Okay, that means there are more chances that you will be in the poverty ridden category, that you cannot earn money if you don't have skill set. If you don't have healthcare, again it's a problem. If your health is deteriorating, you are not able to go to work, you are not added in the labor force count. So all these things will make you be in the poverty line or the poverty category. And if you don't have social capital, okay, social capital means how the contacts or the interconnection with the people. So suppose if a person is having good social capital, so any things will be done so quickly that he have good network of people. So all these things show that if you don't have all these things, lack of education, lack of health care, information, social capital, political power. Political power, that means it is not that you are in the ministry or you are not MLA or MP, how your voice is heard with respect to political decisions or policy formulation. Okay, all these things we'll see. If these are the multi-dimensional aspect, if you are lacking all these things, we say that we are in the poverty category. And lack of intangible assets also cause poverty, like you don't have access to credit. I told you, there is no social capital, you will not mingle with people. Okay, it's normally a problem with women. Okay, housewives or women in India, almost like their life is inside the house only. They don't have much network outside, so their access to credit, okay, will be very less or limited. So there is one example called Kudumbashrees in Kerala. Kudumbashrees is like self-help groups. Okay, so all these programs, the aim is to increase their access to credit and increase their social capital or bandwidth or networking, so that even women are also get access to all this social capital. So you can add example that India is trying to do, or some states have all these kinds of problems. all these kinds of schemes that help people to come out of this problem. Okay. Then access to credit, cultural capital, political capital, lack of human capital, skills, etc. can all this will lead to the problem of poverty. Now let us understand a few theories with regards to poverty. Major theories which have described poverty. First one, and the very important one, is Culture of Poverty by Oscar Lewis. Oscar Lewis, in his study of Mexican cities, have detailedly spoke about or studied about the poverty and how children in the poor family again get into that vicious cycle, and something called the poverty perpetuating value system is happening. Okay, I'll explain to you what it is. The poor are actually not only we said that they are lacking some resources, material resources mainly. There is also a criticism, so that we are not able to meet certain standard of living. So here Oscar Lewis says that not only resources but also other factors. For example, poor remain in poverty as a result of individuals, not only result of the individual shortcomings, but an outcome of a larger social atmosphere in which children are socialized. A poor person's children, or a family who is with acute poverty or absolute poverty, their offspring or children will be surrounded by that kind of social atmosphere. So children will be socialized in that kind of atmosphere, and the lower class is seen as manifesting patterns of behavior and values. They are characteristically different from those of dominant class, because they are into that socialization. They will see only that. So this can be marked by features like feeling of dependency, helplessness, fatalism. All these things are there, is imbibed in the mind of children. So when they are grown up also, that vicious cycle is continuing. So this culture or subculture, this is what Lewis called it as perpetuating poverty. Perpetuating poverty. Okay. The poor are not only lacking resources but also acquire something called a system. They are get into a system automatically called the poverty perpetuating value system. This basically happens with the viewpoint or the aspirations of the people. Okay, a poor people or the child which is born in a poor family, his aspirations will be limited, worldview will be limited. Therefore, when he grows up also, his way of working and the labor aims in life will be very limited to only that context. Okay, and in contrast, if you are seeing a child which is socialized in a very rich family, or born in a very rich family, food and clothing shelter is not a problem for them. They are seeing what is next. So there is more want, and there is no more new innovations and needs are coming. So the perspective and the worldview or the aspirations are different for this child. So there, in both the cycles, there is a vicious cycle going on. This is what Oscar Lewis have studied with respect to culture of poverty in his study of Mexican cities. Next theory is related to poverty as positive feedback system or a vicious cycle. Almost similar to the previous thing. We say that there is a vicious cycle. Okay, we can say that vicious cycle of poverty, and this theory argues that various factors which cause poverty work in such a way that poor cannot get out of this cycle. For example, there is unemployment. Unemployment leads to poverty. So we can understand like this: there is unemployment. Unemployment leads to poverty. Because of poverty, people are poor. We cannot take education. Education is not taken. So without good education, you will not get employment. Again, there is no employment. Okay, vicious cycle is going on. So this is about the theory, poverty as a positive feedback system or a vicious cycle. Next, we'll talk about the third theory, that is stratifications theory. The poor are also part of stratification, there's a typo error, stratification scheme in society in which they occupy the bottom of the pyramid. If you see society like this, people in the bottom are the poor people. And this is the rich strata. So when stratification is saying that, so there is a doubt asking, is hierarchy resulted in poverty? We don't know. Or poverty resulted in hierarchy. There is an argument or debate going around this concept also. Okay. Okay, this you can include in the concept of stratification. So even someone point out that the existence of the poor, it is to ensure that all kinds of menial works are also done. It is helping in running various institutions like police, hospitals, asylums, etc. Poor provide a baseline of failure to the rest of society, which works hard to avoid falling to that level. However, non-functional view holds that some sections like older people, minority groups and females are more likely to witness poverty. All these things we can relate it to how they are falling, where they are falling, and the theory of stratification. Fourth one, we'll talk about Max Weber. Weber have come up with something, a new concept called your cultural values will affect their economic success, and you can come out of something called poverty. Okay, according to Weber's Protestant ethic and spirit of capitalism theory, Protestants are successful as capitalists, that is, their cultural values could affect their economic success. He have also studied Judaism, Hinduism, etc. and he found that we don't have that social spirit in these religions, so that we can account for success through capitalism. So according to Weber, you will be out of the poverty line, or you will not come to that line also, which is culture is also a reason for that. Okay, cultural values also determine where you will be poor or rich. But many people criticized saying this one, saying that it is not the culture, opportunities decides about success. Okay, criticism is also there, but you can add this point. Next, we'll talk about Merton. Merton's theory of American soldiers. He is comparing married and unmarried soldiers. What he is doing is that married soldiers is comparing that unmarried soldiers are more successful, and they are spending some quality time with their friends, everything, and they are remain more richer than them, because married person have to more commitment about family, money has to be spent there, dependents are more, all these things. So we are seeing poverty with respect to this comparative or relative way also. Reference group theory, or the married people are considering unmarried as a reference group and comparing things there. That is what Merton is saying. Next, we'll talk about Karl Marx. According to Karl Marx, in society, gradually when capitalism happens, there is something called polarization happens. The two poles, people will be segregated, and this will be the rich set of the capitalist strata, and this will be the poor, or we can say lumpen proletariat. Okay, that means ultra poor, very very rich, very very poor people, lumpen proletariat. So by this polarization theory, he says that richer becomes more rich, poorer continue to remain more poor, and there is an increase in mismatch between exchange value of labor and use value of labor. Okay, all these things Karl Marx is saying in the concept of polarization. Finally, we'll talk about the functional perspective. We have discussed about this in other classes also. It is very easy. Functional perspective given by Parson and Merton. They say that they are the examples you can quote, and poverty has some functions according to them, and actually there are reasons for inequality. Poverty is a reason for inequality, or inequality can be a reason for debatable. We don't know which one is relating what. So but functionalist perspective or functionalist school says that there is social necessity that this group exists. Then only with low wages, with a very menial payment, that we can get all this work done, like driver, cleaner, domestic help. All this work has to be done. These are functional society. We need this category of people also. That is what functional perspective says about poverty. That means functional school says that poverty as a social necessity, it is required. So that's it about poverty and deprivation. I hope you understood. Thank you.